Hey, what's going on, card collectors? It's Ken with Ken's Cardboard. Have a video today, talk about some baseball cards. You know, I was always going back in the hobby. To me, the base card from, you know, the top sets was the main card from sets, and it was the card that people collected and the card that you wanted. Over time, through watching other people with their collections and understanding what they collect and why they collect, I've come to learn that the base card's not the only card they collect. And when I originally started my collection of Pete Rose, it was of the base card run from 1964 through 1986. And I was mainly focused on the base cards, although there were times where I was collecting non-traditional Topps cards, but my focus was on the base cards. I've come to think that, you know, non-base cards are sometimes even cooler than the base cards. You know, even though the backs of the cards, as you can see, you know, show all the stats on the back, which is kind of cool. But the other cards, like league leader cards and you know, players like Pete Rose had a bunch of record breaker cards. Those cards commemorate that part of the season and how well that player did that season. And so those have become more of my focus lately, since I don't have them either. But you know, shout out to my buddy Dylan over at Double D Vintage Baseball Cards, who's always collected league leader cards and combo cards and things like that, that kind of showcase, you know, who the greats were that season. So I'm going to share some of those things in my collection. I'm also looking at different oddball size things that I collect for Pete Rose, and let's check out some cards. All right, we're back with some cards to share here. As I mentioned before, I've collected the base run of Pete Rose all the way from 64 up to 86. I don't have his rookie card yet. I have a fake version, but it's on my list. You know, the base cards show the position and, you know, just the regular team and, you know, just the player, highlighting the player themselves. Obviously, the backs typically show their stats from that past season. You know, back in the day, they would also show, you know, cartoons or some other tidbit about the player. This 64 is kind of a faded back here. They've added a lot of things to the stats. Like back here, they have, you know, games, at bats, runs, hits, doubles, triples, home runs, RBI, and average. Now they've got the stolen bases and several other stats on there that I didn't have before. But lately I've been picking up oddball size cards like this 1970 Pete Rose. And then I think it's a 71. And then here's a 1970 Pete Rose. These are the Topps super cards. So pretty cool to add those to the collection. Shout out to my buddy David M, who picked this up for me at his local LCS. So all kinds of cards were made of Pete Rose in the 80s, but let's start with the 70s. Two of the greatest hitters of all time, Rod Carew and Pete Rose, both the batting leaders of 1973. This is a 74 Topps. You can see Carew had a 350 batting average and Rose had 338. Rose wasn't, I forget how many times he led the league in batting, but it was a few times. I think it was 3 times. But he does lead the league in hits, that's for sure. He just had a lot of at-bats. So there's the 73. Shout out to my buddy Matt at Fox Crew Cards. He loves Rod Carew. Also George at Diamond Yard Sports Cards. He shows off his Rod Carew cards on a regular basis. So there you go. This says 73 league leaders card. 74 Topps card. Let's go to this card. This is one of the ugliest Pete Rose pictures I've seen out there. And True Value Hardware stores, I think they still exist. I know they compete with maybe Ace Hardware, but this was a kind of a cutout from some type of a sheet. Had perforated edges. Doesn't show the complete stats, just shows like the last 4 years. Obviously there's no license from, they just have the Players Association's license, no MLB license, so he doesn't have a hat on. What a picture they chose. It was like a, looked like a nighttime picture they chose as well. If you can get these in a good grade, that's pretty tough. This one's got like a mark on the front here, but interesting card design. But you know, picked it up for a few bucks. What else do we got here? So Drake's is a bakery. They made, I think, bread and pastries. I'm not familiar with Drake's where I live in Colorado, or from when I lived in California, but they obviously had a connection with Topps because the back of these looked like the 1982 Topps cards. So Topps made these for Drake's, so we got 1982 bakery, Drake's Bakeries Incorporated. So I don't know how many years they made the Drake's cards, but this is a nice looking design, and it's no different from Topps. So added that to my Drake's collection of Pete Rose from 1982. Also in the 80s, there was tons of box sets, and this is something that Fleer made, Exciting Stars. And this one, Pete Rose was still a manager. He was a manager and first base. This was the sad season where Rose was accused of betting on his team. I don't know if it was ever proven or not, but I think it was the last year that he played in 1986. But this is a number 38 of 44 of this set of the Exciting Stars, which in the 80s, Fleer and Donruss and Topps, they all made these box sets that you could get kind of like a insert card today, because they didn't really have insert cards back in the 80s. They just made box sets. You could probably get those for $6 or $7. As I mentioned before, Pete Rose has a lot of highlights in his career, and then so in 1985, Donruss, this is a subset, number 10, 1985 Leaf Donruss. So Pete Rose is the National League career run leader, and you know, when you get on base all those times with a hits, you're going to end up with a lot of runs. So he was part of those great teams in Cincinnati that drove in a lot of runs. So he's, for Rose, it was his 2,108th run of his career, passing Hank Aaron. The Major League record for most runs is 2,245 by Ty Cobb. So 1985, I think Rose played one more season after that. So I don't think he ended up breaking that on the runs. I think actually Ricky Henderson ended up breaking Ty Cobb's record at one point, I believe. My last Pete Rose card is another big card. This is from 1984, I believe. Donruss Champions. School design. Pretty basic, but when Rose was with the Phillies for a few years, I think his last year with the Phillies was 83. And Donruss made these big cards. I don't know if they came, I don't know how they came, if they came in packs or a set, or like how these were acquired. So if someone knows how these were distributed, that'd be great. I don't think they had box toppers back in the day like they do now, but At that time, Pete Rose was just shy of Ty Cobb. He had 3,990 hits versus 4,191. So didn't quite reach that yet, but when he went back to Cincinnati, he ended up breaking that record. Pete Rose had a good run with the Phillies in 1980 when they won the World Series. So he's a couple-time World Series champion from the 70s with the Reds and then with the Phillies in 1980. So there you have it. That's going to be my addition to my Pete Rose collection. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. And I know there's a lot. Pete Rose doesn't always get all the love he maybe deserved as a player, but maybe one day he'll make it into the Hall of Fame. I know I get comments about it every time I show a Pete Rose video. We'll see if that happens or not. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a great weekend. Peace out.